Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, claiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world, and let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before proceeding to the episode, I just want to take a minute to speak about Her Inspirations, which is the sister podcast to Her Conversations. And in each episode of Her Inspirations, I explore some of the things that we encounter as we embark on our own spiritual and awakening journeys. And recently what I've done is expanded on the format, so now it includes an accompanying weekly email that then has additional notes that you can use for your meditation, your journaling, your inspiration. And also I include links to other relevant sources, and also there are loads of exclusives there as well as and when they arrive. So if you are someone who is actively seeking growth, I invite you to tune in to Her Inspirations, and also you can use the link in the show notes below this episode to join the Her Inspirations mailing list. And when you do, you'll also receive free the Embody Her course. My guest this week is Bridget Querns, a life coach and owner of Querns Coaching, host of Passionate Pursuits podcast, and a featured author in the book Warrior Women, Turning Life Lessons to Legacy. In this episode, Bridget shares some of the radical shifts that she has made in her life as a result of choosing to answer to her truth. We also talk about pain and the opportunity that we have if we embrace it when it appears in our lives. And there are many more juicy musings and sharings from both of us who are two curious spiritual seekers. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
So lately, the place where I've been feeling the most resonance for myself is just getting really, really quiet and really, really present in nature, because I've just felt so much peace and so much authenticity from the way that nature just is. And being around that, I feel like invites me to embody that as well. So it's like I love trees. I'm a big tree lover. I just always have. I've always felt really grounded and safe in forests or with trees. So just looking at the way in which a tree exists in a space, it's like nature has shown me that it can't be anything but its authentic expression. And then that gets me to question myself, how can I be more of that energetic, authentic expression more frequently for longer periods of time, and get out of my head and really drop into my body, drop into my heart, and just express as naturally as possible. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. And before we get deeper into our conversation, Bridget, I just want to give you an opportunity to share with the audience, with the listeners, just about you and how you arrived to where you are and what you're doing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a lifetime of a story, but if I start where I am now is living every day towards embodying my highest expression of myself. And what it's taken to get here was really a very bumpy, I guess we would say pain-filled, rocky road of loss and of seeing things that I had suppressed or repressed or just didn't want to look at, really seeing them face to face and dealing with them and integrating them. And to be more concrete with it, it's taken leaving my full-time job, shutting down multiple businesses that I was running, almost dying from what I was told was heart failure, for me to wake up and say, either I can accept this prognosis that I've been given, my heart is giving out and it's not going to last, or I can do something about it. And in that moment, what I felt like was happening was an invitation for me to really tune in and listen to my soul's heart, when what it was saying, and what it was saying was, you can't keep doing something that's not authentic to your expression, to who you are. Stop, listen. Like, what do you want to bring into the world? What wants to be birthed into the world through you? Because all of our desires as humans can be bottled down into, what is this new thing that you want to create in the world? That's what all desire comes down to. What is the new thing that you are just yearning to birth into the world? And for me, when I really tuned in and listened to that, what that was I want to be the fullest expression of my higher self, so I can activate others into that same expression for themselves. That's what I want to do.
Beautiful. I love that. So I want to ask for an example before we go a bit further, like whichever one you want to share. Because I think as well that we all have dreams. I truly 100% believe that everyone has dreams, whether people follow through on them or not. Mm-hmm. And yet so few people decide that they are going to take that step into even seeing where it takes them. You know, I've tried multiple things in my life, and I could say that you could say from the outside that I wasn't successful at them, but they took me into spaces that I would never have been, countries I've never been, people I would have never met had I've not gone in the pursuit of something that is like being shown to me, almost to the extent that I can't ignore it. It just like turns up everywhere. You know, like mm-hmm. Close my eyes, it's there. Like, you know, try not to think about it. It's there somehow. It's coming. Like, what was either the most recent or the biggest one where you just had to go, listen, I can't pretend that this is me anymore, and I've got to drop something, I've got to pivot, and I've got to be something completely different despite everything, or despite the risk it looks like.
Yeah. So, this is super vulnerable, but I think what happens is, we talked about pain, and pain is an invitation for us, and we can either open the invitation or we can throw it away. Mm-hmm. And I think when we throw it away, what happens is it becomes embodied and embedded in our physical body, to where something like heart failure or something like that can happen if we leave it long enough. But if we go the opposite direction and we open that invitation, then what it does is pain works with us. Mm. It gives us an opportunity to say, this thing that's causing you pain, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever the pain is, this thing that's causing you pain, if you like eat it, if you embody it, if you listen to it and respond and take the next right step, then that pain is going to become the thing that propels you. Like, it becomes a fuel, like it propels you into the fuller expression of yourself. And so for me, what started happening multiple years ago was that I started having pain around the way that I was expressing in partnership, in my marriage that I've been in for a long, long time. I loved my husband, incredible human, wonderful father, beautiful marriage. Everything looked perfect. And yet I was feeling so much pain. And I was like, what is this pain trying to show me? And the scary thing is, like, when you feel a pain like that, it's like, this pain is asking me to do something that's going to change my entire life. It's going to make it look completely different than what it is. And what it is right now is safe and comfortable. And yeah, pain asks us a lot of the times to like step out onto the hot coals and trust that we're not going to get burned. And I understand why people resist it. I really do. But I have this equation that I live by, and it is suffering equals pain times resistance divided by gratitude. So if you see the pain and you try to meet it with as little resistance as possible, and you bring all this gratitude, thank you for showing me these things in my life that I really need to integrate. Thank you for showing me the areas that I need to grow. And so I did that with this pain that I was feeling, and that led to what was really a beautiful uncoupling. And it wasn't just because I was doing that, it was because he was willfully entering into this process with me with really open hands and saying, how can I cause less pain for you? I see that you're struggling. I see that this is like suffering for you. What can I do? And that was really hard. Like, there's a lot of heartbreak and there's a lot of personal things that go on behind the scenes that I won't talk about, but we entered it together. He kind of sat down in the mud with me and we looked at each other, and I was able to speak a truth that was really, really hard to speak. And that was, I'm gay. And that's why this is, and I felt there was so much guilt and so much stress because I was like, oh my gosh, me not being able to come face to face with my full expression caused him pain too. I caused him suffering that I wasn't even aware I was causing. And so, I mean, it's like when you renovate a house and you rip out a wall, you never know what's going to be behind there. And most of the time, there's something unexpected that's going to come out with it. Mm-hmm. And that was what happened. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to speak this truth. I cannot go one more day without speaking this truth and releasing him, because I love him and I want him to live a full, meaningful, fulfilled life also. So I have to do this. But when I do this, then I also have to come face to face with the fact that that's on me. Me not being able to see myself and live my fullest expression did cause pain and hurt for others. But that was the choice. It was like, do I cut this off and say, no more? I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. Or do I keep living? And the way that I saw it was like, what's the most compassionate step forward for everyone involved? How do I live out love as best as I can here? And for me, love is truth. Mm-hmm. Love is beauty. Love is compassionate. And all of those things meant that I had to speak my truth. And I had to do it in the most compassionate and gentle way that I knew how. But I couldn't keep denying myself, abandoning myself. And I couldn't keep dragging others along with that untruth. Like, that's just not fair. It's not okay. So, I mean, that's like super vulnerable, but you know what? If we want other people in this human experience to get vulnerable and be honest with themselves, I think sometimes we have to be really, really super vulnerable too.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Thank you for speaking up. One of the things that you said when I was listening was like compassionate to others as well, and often when we think that we're minimizing ourselves or something that we're doing, we think we're doing it for the best interests of everyone involved. Mm-hmm. And like you said, to continue to go forward is just to continue to exist in a lie, and everyone buying into the version of yourself that isn't really who you are, and you knowing that and you pushing down that pain, like we know with anything, like not confronting anything and trying to suppress it, you then spend so much of your energy trying to suppress something that then in itself causes, and it kind of pops out wherever it's going to pop out in our existence, like physically or emotionally. And there's so much, and thinking, as again, when you were saying compassionate for everybody, it's like for the majority of us, because we've all done it, who walk around presenting a version of ourselves, you know. So like we're all in this, we're all doing it to a greater or lesser extent, probably a greater extent, really, just always living in that well, if I say this, that person will get hurt, and that person will get hurt, and you know, and maybe not giving people the benefit of finding their own strength by experiencing something difficult, but then also the living with the revelation of truth and the shift that will make for them. So yeah, it's going to rip the carpet from underneath you and change your world and move everything around, and there's a period of disorientation, but then once everything settles down and you see where you are, and then also you get out of the blame, you know, because like I think there's two sides to everything, though. You know, it's like sometimes you want to take it all on yourself and go, well, because I wasn't doing this, then this happened. But like there's, you know, pimple meets dimple, right? There's like a hole within it. So there would have been, whether it's apparent or not, an element where that was being allowed.
Yep.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I don't know. I mean, like okay, let's stick with your story and say, did you always know that you were gay? Was this a revelation to yourself? How would you
really, I love that. That's a really good question. So the environment that I was raised in, although wonderful, we're all raised in environments that challenge us to grow in certain directions, right? So the way that I see it is like I have these climbing plants that I'm looking at, and those climbing plants are going to find the easiest route to climb. Now, when we're provided with these structures that are really rigid, we attach to those because we think that that's the way up. That's the way that I have to go. So I was raised in really conservative religious communities. And although I was really mystical and I loved them and I had beautiful experiences with them, they also were very rigid. And I felt like this is the only way. This is the way. There are no other ways. I have to conform like this is the way. And when I was a child, those walls were insurmountable. Like you couldn't bust through them. You couldn't go over them. There was no other way. That was it. So that was my like earliest experience of this is what I am and this is what it is because there is no other way. That's just how everyone is. And that's all I was told. I got into grade school and I started to learn that like I'm different. Like I have these different feelings and I see things differently. And there are other people who are also saying that they're different. Like, for example, I'll just say throw out for like a funny example. My first experience of kissing a boy was awful, like really, really revoltingly awful. No shade to him, not his fault. My first experience with kissing a girl was beautiful and sweet and safe. And I started to conflate my feelings of attraction. So what happened was I saw anxiety and butterflies and stomach upset and heart palpitations as being what love and attraction were supposed to feel like, instead of this sense of security, safety, beauty, peace. I thought that's what I'm supposed to feel like. So that's the direction that I'm going. And I would only feel like that when I was in relationship or was physical with a male. So it's like we can create these neural pathways like that's very possible. And that's what I was told. And it just, went from there. Like there were always these echoes in the back of my head of like, this is beautiful, this is safe, this is secure. And I look back and, hindsight is 2020. I look back and I see all of these experiences that I could have had or that I did have and that I had framed differently because of this existing pole that I was climbing. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think who we are innately, like our higher self, never leaves us. We're always whole. It's always present. But there's a lot of conditioning of formats of society, of expectations that we can fall into because it's just the way that it is. Like they're present and they're really loud and they're really pervasive. So it took a whole lot of sitting with myself and asking really hard questions. I love to ask hard questions to other people. I don't love to ask them to myself. But it took years of sitting with myself and asking really, really hard questions. And then when I answered and I got the truth, then the question was, all right, what are you going to do with that now? What do you do with that? And that gets real scary because like we just said, it means what looks like demolishing your path, but it's not. It's not. It's coming home to yourself. It's building a more beautiful and true expression of yourself.
Beautiful. And I think it's good for you to put this sharing out there, even though you're like, I don't want to do this, because like you're saying, we're getting to, like, for us to have the world that we deserve as souls, there just needs to be just a lack of BS now. It's really exhausting, and especially if yourself and like myself, what I'm trying to do is to be out there as a voice that is speaking on this and going, we need to be real, we need to be honest, we need to speak truth and what truth looks like and what it feels like, and also kind of prepare ourselves for the for whatever's going to come, but also have a sense of, I don't know how you're going to respond to this, but I know this is how I feel about, even though I'd say like my life is challenging and I've been kind of putting things together to kind of pull this book together. So I'm in deep introspection about my entire life, which is sometimes great, but sometimes you get to see something from a different perspective. It's like, even though there's been elements that have been why me, I'm like, I'm glad it's me. I'm glad that I've been through all of this. I'm glad that I can write this book. I can tell this story, and none of it's a lie. It's like all of these experiences, all of these hard experiences, all of these, like you say, sitting with yourself and going, oh my God, and really digging into like what that means for you, and then clearing your throat and then going, okay, I'm going to start vocalizing this now so that people see what it looks like and see that when you talk about hard things, when you go through the pain, it actually doesn't last as long as you think it does, actually, because you think, oh, this will be the actual ruination of me, I'll die, it'll be over, you like the worst case scenario, when it actually doesn't. It might kind of bring you to your knees or a little bit below that. But then when you start to put yourself together, it comes together in such a different way that also it builds in you a resilience that you're like, bring it, because I've been in the mud face down. Knickers off, everything, like I've been at my most embarrassing and my most lowest point. So whatever it is, whatever could you possibly bring to me that's going to take me out, like in human form, I know that's how I feel about things, because also many of the times the loudest voices have been from the fakest people, and now having faced truth and come out of the guts of like what pushing everything away was, and what that meant is like, come on now, because I've been through it and I'm coming out the other side. I'm not there yet, but it kind of gives you a layer of resilience and a ballsiness that many people would love to have about themselves. So I think it will draw more people to you to have shared in that way, and to see that, okay, I'm turning my life around, like in a way that'd be like, she's doing what, you know? And then, you know, which I saw you having to kind of like respond to those kind of like, what's up kind of questions. But then when they see what it makes of you and what it creates in your life, then it will be like, you know, it will get people kind of sitting back and looking, side-eyeing their own life. And everyone knows where their own BS is. They do.
Yep, we all do. Yeah. And if we can't hear ourselves and trust ourselves, we cannot possibly expect to hear or trust others. You have to hear and trust your own voice first. People will invite you into a relationship where they want to be true with you and they want you to trust them and they want to trust you. But the truth is, no one can fully trust you if you don't trust yourself. There's stuff that's hiding that you don't want to deal with. And that means you're not bringing your whole self into that relationship, friendship, family, you know, partnership, whatever it may be. We can't expect to show up for someone else until we show up for ourselves. And again, pain does not kill us. That is not the thing that kills us. It feels like we're dying. Yes, I've been there multiple times and come out and I'm still breathing. But pain is an indicator, and it is the extent to which you work with that pain and find what is the root that is causing this. Let's dig deeper, 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 deeper. Let's get all the roots out. It's the extent to which you do that you can emerge on the other side and not even just resilient, but being the opposite of fragile, being anti-fragile. Like there's this spectrum of fragility and resilience. And Brian Johnson is a great philosopher who talks about this. But there's fragility, which means we break when we're under pressure. There's resilience, which means I can bounce back when pressure is applied. But then there's anti-fragility, and that's what I want to be. Anti-fragility is when you apply the pressure and the pain and you try to break me, it makes me stronger. It literally conditions me to grow those muscles and become stronger. So I've done all this stuff. I've spoken on multiple platforms now about this. And the more I do it and the more I teach my body that it's safe and that I'm allowed to speak like this and I'm allowed to be my full authentic expression, then the stronger I'm going to get at doing that. And that's my higher self. That's who I want to embody. So people who are courageous and are brave are not working in the absence of fear. That's so wrong to think that we don't experience fear. We see the fear and we do it in the face of the fear. And that's what makes you courageous. No one would be courageous if fear didn't exist, because courage wouldn't need to be a thing.
Right.
So like, bring on the fear, give me some pain to indicate where I need to grow. And I'm going to lean in towards that pain instead of turning my back and walking away from it. Like, I want to lean into that and I want to bring the gratitude there so that I'm not suffering and so that it can inform me and so I can grow and become this higher expression of myself.
Where do you think this idea comes from that life's just meant to be this kind of lily pad? Who came up with that? Because it was like the biggest disservice done to mankind. Because all of what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, like all the things that have shaped me and made me better have been the uncomfortable things, have been either, you know, and I've seen in instances in my life in the past where, because I was too fearful of having difficult conversations or being vulnerable, the shit show it's created, you know, and the breakdown in relationships it created, or misunderstandings that it created. And even still to this day, that I want to build up myself to go back and just go, this is where I was at that point in time, and that's why that looked like that. Because I just thought bringing the conversation to you would collapse us both, you know, and I didn't know if I was able to handle that. So better to kind of just play around and pretend that things are all right, or just kind of sneak off into the darkness and not face my responsibilities, felt easier. But, you know, me being a person is like, certain things are still hang over my head. Unresolved things are still kind of dangling there that had I dealt with it 5, 10, 15 years ago, these wouldn't be tendrils of stuff that I'm still knowing that I need to kind of go back and put right if that opportunity exists even, you know. But yet there's this idea, and I think we're kind of blending it in kind of like spirituality, you know, we kind of like touched on the tears of it, where there's this kind of idea of love and lightness, you know, but love and lightness being just you know, it's all good and it's all, you know, let's not lean into the pain, let's not look at dark things, because we will manifest them, as opposed to like the dark things are there and we need to look at them. We're not creating them if we're observing them from a point of view of observation without bringing all of our senses in there, you know, because to manifest you need to incorporate all of your senses. So if you're just observing something, taking note of it and being emotionally kind of like at a space, then you're not bringing it into being. You're seeing what it is and making decisions as how you're going to transmute it or whatever it needs to be done. Yet there still seems to be this like this spirituality light, this new age, new cage stuff that pulls people out of the everyday. So it helps because it gets them out of like everyday I don't even know what the best term is for it, everyday life. So seeing that there is something more, but then kind of moving out of that, but then checking out and bypassing the real work that we know is the most transformative work, and keeping people trapped in and using very powerful things to do so. Energy, you know, like focus and attention that will keep you in a space that you think that you're healed but you're not moving forward or backward or anything. You're just kind of in this stasis of non-growth, but at least you're kind of not in the mud, but yet you're not transforming into what it is that you could be. And the thing is, and I think what gets confusing is people use similar language, so it sounds the same, but then after a while you see it isn't the same. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if you have any thoughts of this, is like where this idea of life is just good all the way through, and if bad things happen, that's terrible, it came from, that we don't want to experience anything.
Yeah, so there's a lot there that I'm going to pull apart, but the first thing that I thought of was I think the reason people believe that life is supposed to be like that is because there are those of us who are walking on this other side, this like really, I mean, it's light filled, it's beautiful. Every moment of my existence is like thick with the presence of God. Every moment of it. It's so overwhelmingly beautiful if I just allow myself to be in it. But those beautiful moments exist totally interwoven with the pain and the suffering and the crap and the mud that I sit in. It's all together, always. It's just the fact that wherever we place our focus, that's what we're going to see. So the person who's only focused on the beauty and how easy it is and how light-filled it is and how loving it is going to talk about that. What I want to do is I want to be the person who is still sitting in the mud with you, telling you about how beautiful it is too. Like reality wants to be embodied. Every possible outcome, every possibility has to be. So we're all going to experience pain and suffering. And like I said, it's the extent to which we work with them and see them as tools for our own growth that we will also see the beauty in them. And I like to say that life is like we were all these, you know, we're all going to have different beliefs around that. And that's beautiful. If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, totally cool. I'm weird. That's great. I love it. But the way I see it is we were all these like this soul family kind of standing outside this arena of life, this playground. I like to call it a playground of life, looking down at life and being like, I want to have that experience. Like, I want to go on that playground and I want to climb that slide and I want to go down face first and bash my face against the ground and see what that feels like, because we were detached from the good and bad, the positive and negative. there was no attachment to any meaning that was present in experience. It was just, I want to have that experience. Instead of looking at it as positive and negative, I just want to have a rich experience. Do you want to have a rich experience, or do you want to have a dull experience? Well, I want to have a rich experience. I want all the experience. Well, a rich experience is sitting in the dark floor of my college gymnasium and getting the call that my dad died in a car accident. That's a rich experience. That's full of emotion. And also, it's really painful. And it can be really negative. But you know what else? It's a really rich experience to be in a labor and delivery room and get to be a human who is birthing a new life into this world. And I was like, I could tell you, like, grabbing the sides of the bed and like squatting and like letting out this primal scream and like, don't freaking touch me. I'm giving birth. Like, it's so empowering and so powerful. And it's freaking painful too. Yeah, it hurts, but it's rich. It's a rich experience. And also, it's a really sweet and rich experience for me to sit with my face in the sun and hear the birds and smell the ocean breeze and just be. That's a really rich experience too. And all of these things have shades that we've attached to them because we're attached. We're in physical form. We can't help but attach meaning, positive, negative, to things. So again, going back to the idea that if people are like, oh, it's love and light and peace and rainbows, it is. Of course it is. You're embodied. You get to be human. You get to play on the playground. What a literally once in a lifetime experience this is. Wow. What a gift. You're here. Touch yourself. You're alive. This is amazing. And also, it's really hard. People get banged up. And if we can just remember the fact that this is just the playground, and we can, you know, when we get pulled back out of here and like undipped from this experience, we'll look back and go, oh, like we'll forget. It's like when people say you forget the pain of childbirth. Yeah. And your soul's also going to forget the pain of the things, but it's going to remember the richness of the experience. So I want to be the person who's on the playground talking about this and that, both, all of it. All of it. I want to experience all of it. I want to experience a gut-wrenching feeling of losing someone who I love, because that means that my love is real and that I felt it. And I would rather take that 10 times over than have the dull experience of never having loved anyone.
Right. And I wish more people could hear that. I think there's this fear of, you know, like an annihilation, like it'll be the depths of you, the death of you. And to respond to that though, because I've seen how people can get stuck in grief.
Yeah.
And trapped and live in that space for decades, you know, and that be their experience. And, you know, I can respond to that in two ways, like watching it and watching the pain that they're going through, but then bringing in your perspective of saying, well, that's their experience, because then when they pop out, they're like, yeah, I did like 40 years of grief, man. You know what I mean? And then, like, from our point of view, it's like, why would you want to be in that pain? It's like, how can we remind ourselves on a daily basis that all of it is okay? Like, if it hurts, it's okay. If it's good, it's okay. If we hate it, it's okay. If we love it, it's okay. If it's bitter, it's okay. It's sweet, it's okay. It's like, what can we do to just remind ourselves that there's all, like you say, all of these shades, and that's what life is, as opposed to it just being all good and all light, and people avoiding the richness of feeling the pain and the loss and the grief and the disappointment and the hate and all of those kind of like charged and so-called negative emotions and experiences that people try and avoid. What comes up for you with that?
So I will just say how I came to this perspective, and arriving at this perspective is going to look different for lots of different people, because there are so many ways that we can get there. You can get to this almost, it's a bit transcendent. It's a bit like being able to see the surface of the water and just skim lightly over it versus getting plunged down into it. But you have to have some kind of experience where you fully recognize your own mortality, where you come face to face with, oh my God, I feel like I'm dying. It's an ego death, right? And then you go, and I'm choosing this anyway. And from now on, I'm going to see this as the most beautiful gift I've ever been given. Like, I have this totally different perspective. You can get there through studying meditation. I definitely suggest getting there by being really, really quiet and still. And you can do that by just sitting outside with yourself alone, quietly. Even when you're like, oh, I just want to move, I just want to think, I just want to do something, stop. Just breathe, feel the breath in your body, and just be. You can also get there through plant medicine journeys. A lot of people choose that way, and there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm not knocking it. I think it's a beautiful and incredible and mind-opening experience. But it can also be bypassing a little bit in some situations. Like, I think a lot of people are like, well, I want that. And you say, that's the easiest route to get there, so I'm going to go the easy route. I've had all of these experiences. So I've gotten to experience it through this wide range of experiences. And I will say that I think for me, one of the most incredible ways to get there is through breath work. And you don't need a special practitioner to take you through a guided breath work journey. You can do it yourself. It's through really, really getting into your body. So embodying, like somatic breath work, like really being present in your body, and recognizing the fact that your body is capable of so much more than you could imagine. It's also capable of holding and storing and hiding things from you that you didn't want to remember, that you stuffed down and you forgot were there. You can get there through a really great, intense workout. I mean, there's so many routes to get there. But yeah, I would say that the more you can leave behind, like the toys and the implements, and the more you can get into yourself and trust your voice. None of us are disconnected from our inner voice. Not a single one of us. It's not possible. But we get really, really good at listening to other people tell us we should doubt it. At hearing someone say, oh, well, if you're hearing your own voice, then you're probably crazy and that's not a good thing and you should just stop, because you have to really get beyond that societal conditioning to do this. But again, if you can't trust yourself, you can't trust anyone else. If you can't hear your voice, if you refuse to hear your voice, you can never truly hear someone else's voice. So you've got to get yourself to a place where you can and where you're willing to. Yeah, it's another thing that I was thinking as we were kind of talking before this conversation was like, okay, your intuition, like do you want to have an experience with your higher self, with God, with the universe, whatever you want to call it? To me, it's all the same thing. So it doesn't matter. God doesn't care whether you call them source, universe, consciousness, energy, higher self. It's all the same thing. But do you want to have a text exchange with them? Do you want to call them on the phone? Or do you want to sit down face to face and have that experience? Because it's your choice. It's totally up to you. And if you want to cut off communication with them too, then you can totally do that. I know lots of people who do. It's a survival mechanism for them. They say, I was raised in this place where it wasn't safe for me to have a belief in a higher power, and so I choose not to. That's fine. That's your choice of how you want to live this experience. You got to plan out this experience for your soul. And if you wanted to live it totally disconnected and to see what that felt like, then I'm not the person to tell you that you can't do that. But I want to have the experience every day, every moment of every day. I'm going to cry, where life is so beautiful and so rich with God that I'm never not connected. I want to be face to face with God when I'm looking at this pen, when I'm speaking to you, when I'm touching a leaf on a plant, when I'm taking a breath. I want to feel my connectedness with my source nonstop. That's my choice.
I love it. You know, I like that stuff. I'm so with you. It's like kind of one of the things I was thinking about today is like, why do I do what I do? You know, it's like and why is it so important for me to want to share this and want to guide people through who are interested in this kind of opening up to their spirituality, you know. And I know sometimes when I say it, people are just thinking, oh, is it crystals? Is it like, you know, but it's like, I don't use tools. I know people do. And I know it's kind of like a gateway. It kind of gives them permission to kind of go there and go, well, you know, now that I'm holding this, then I can be that, you know, like if that's what you need to do it. But like if you dropped it, you'd still be there. Like, unless you decided that you were not. But I'm with you about this, like being able to kind of feel and see everything and being able to hear the like my voice is just, you know. And I remember the first time that I had an experience of my voice, and I may have spoken about this on this podcast before, but I was in a meditation, I don't remember what it was, like a sound healing or a sound experience. And so the guy that was leading it, one, because I'm a musician, so sound is always going to bring me in anyway on that level. And like one of the first things that he did was he demonstrated overtone singing, which blew my mind anyway, because you're just like, what? How's he, you know, because he's just doing this circular breathing, and then suddenly you're hearing like the harmonics just like going above him. You're like, where, what, how, you know, just the most beautiful, amazing thing. Because I know the voice, and like usually you can only sing one note at a time, but I realized actually you can sing chords because I've seen people do it, but that's a different thing in itself. But then he took us into this really deep meditation, and I've been trying, I think maybe I've got there close one more time since that point. And this is something that happened like 15 years ago, maybe even more, that experience. And it was such a deep meditation because he was kind of using singing bowls, and then he'd come around with a tuning fork and kind of place it on different areas, like different chakra points on our body. So we just kind of turned into, you know, resonance. We just started to kind of go at that level. And what I remember about it as well was, you know, you close your eyes and you still have, even if your eyes are closed, you still have, the membrane will still bring in some light. You know, you're never in a dark space. But then at some point during that, then there was almost like, I don't know what the animals are, the reptiles that have like second eyelids. It felt like there was like a second eyelid that came and like really pulled the light out. So, and then I was in a space that wasn't black. I always remember that it wasn't black. Black I find very flat as a color. Yeah. Whereas like the deepest of blues has an expanse about it. It's like this deep navy blue, and it was far and wide and up and down. It was endless, and it was velvety, and it was quiet, even though all of this tuning was going around. And then a voice came this ear and went, and it was my voice, but I wasn't saying it because, you know, here's my voice. And it was just saying, anything is possible. What was that, you know? And I've never got to a point where I've come close with different meditations to that depth, but never that. And it was like I'd gotten to the point of maybe just returning back to that oneness, returning back to that moment of source where like all of the tones have kind of pulled the resonances of all the frequencies of the world, you know. And this is prior to like cell phones as well, so we didn't have all that mess going on. But it was just going back to that resonant point of whatever frequency he used on that fork, I can't remember. And then just hearing my own voice telling me that it was all possible. Everything that I was thinking was all possible. And this is why I can tell this story with such clarity, because I remember it, and also I've been rewriting it as well recently to recall it. And then but I was so glad of that experience, even though it was like, what, how? Because then I just spent my lifetime chasing that, going like, one, can I get into that depth again? But also I got told by some aspect of myself that everything that I was seeing was possible. No, I didn't realize that how much I was going to have to wade through to make it possible. But I just knew I had the end point there already. I've had the end point there already, that it's all possible. And that's one thing that I remember, that when I have that kind of tuning in, like I say, I never get that deep again, but there's always that kind of, I'm plugged in, to remember it, seeing it, hearing it, knowing when I'm being creative, knowing when I'm writing, or like you say, in moments of silence, that there's so much that comes through. And I wish I could actually learn how to facilitate that switch for people, because it had such a deeply profound shift for me, that if everyone could experience that, going to that space and hearing themselves, telling themselves that it's going to happen, that it's all good, then you would just spend the rest of your life making sure that it was going to happen, because you've been told by yourself. There's no external source, no, maybe it's the voice of God, maybe God is your voice to you and other, to other people. I think we always expect this kind of Charlton Heston like reverberation coming through the clouds and stuff like that. But that's always fed me, in all the years and all the challenges through that, I've been like, but I've been told that it's possible. So I have to keep going, because I want to see it through before my day is up here, and that's why I want to keep going as long as possible, to see it through, because I've been told that it's possible. Yeah. So, and I think with that, having that experience of just getting to a point where you can feel a stillness is probably why it's so easy for people to not follow through on themselves, because it feels like it's too far, too high in the sky. It's like, yeah, it's in the sky, but it's, a different sky. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this story is the most beautiful thing. I had chills. I had so many chills. Something that struck me with this, there's so many things that struck me, but one thing that struck me was the fact that if I am possible, if this right now, what we're doing is possible, then everything has to be possible, or this wouldn't be possible. It's like, this one thing that we're experiencing couldn't be experienced and lived if every possible thing weren't possible. So there's literally nothing that is impossible, because impossible would negate existence. And then another thing that I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. This connects. I love Dr. Mark Gaffney. I love his theory about how the universe is eros, all the way up, all the way down. That creation is a product of the eros of the universe, this cosmo-erotic desire. Because like I said, desire all can be summed up in the one idea that we just want to bring something new into the world. The desire to be intimate with someone is the desire to bring a new expression of relationship into the world. The desire to do this project that's going to make money is the desire to create abundance and bring it into the world. Every desire is an extension of the way in which the universe becomes. It's eros. So no desire is bad. Even, and I'm going to be like, really, I love pushing buttons. Even the murderer who desires to end someone's life is serving a purpose, because what they are doing is creating an experience that those two souls have now lived together. And when they're out and looking at the playground, it's just a vivid experience. There's nothing attached to it. Yes, it is wrong. I'm not advocating for murder here. But what I am saying is that every single possibility has to be in order for any of this to be. And everything has to be lived and experienced. Reality wants to be embodied. People, me included, do a really good job of telling ourselves that the desire that we have is wrong and we're not allowed to have it. And we just need to stop the BS right now, because the desires that you have is literally the desire of the universe to birth something new through you. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's all good. It's all important, and it all has to happen. So, I think that most of us are really good, genuine people who want to be truthful, who want to be authentic, who want to follow our intuitions. Those are your listeners. That's why they're here. So I'm just going to challenge them and say, you know what I'm talking about when I say this. That desire that you have, that one, the one you're thinking of right now, when I say that one, go take one step towards that today and see how it feels. One tiny step. You don't have to do what I did and burn the whole thing down all at once. It was great. It's turned out wonderfully and everyone is safe and healthy. However, just take one little tiny baby step towards the fulfillment of that desire and just see what it does somatically for you. How do you feel in your body when you do that? Not what do you think about? How does your heart feel? Does your heart feel expansive and bubbly and joyful? Do you feel peace? Do you feel excitement? Oh my gosh, I did that. I could do this too. Just check in with yourself. Take one step towards the creation of that desire, the embodiment of that desire, and just see what it does. Because if we all committed, if every single one of us human beings committed to taking one step toward the embodiment of our desire, there would be a shockwave of energy that went out in that moment. Your tiny little step would be magnified isn't even the right word for it. Amplified beyond your greatest imagination if we all started taking steps in that direction, because we are literally co-creating the expansion of the universe with the universe. The universe wants to get on your side and bring all of this to life. Stop thinking that you're playing against this unseen force. That unseen force is so with you, is so for you, is so working in your favor. Embody that. Do the thing. I get so excited about this.
But it's true though. That's part of the, when I'm having those daydreams of what would happen if, because when you start to move towards whatever it is that your thing is, then you go through all of the things you need to go through, you get closer to your truth. And like you say, then you recognizing what's true for you, then you recognize the truth in others. And it just, this refraction of truth, yes, just spinning off in so many 8 million directions, or billion directions even. Where could we be? And I think it's so necessary to kind of shift things, to shift into the new era, age, yuga, whatever it's going to be, whatever we want to call it. So many different modalities and religions and belief systems have talked about this shift in time for so long. Mm-hmm. And we're just so right there now.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to put an asterisk on this. I think it's really important to bring this up. When I talk about all of this, I also want to say that we are not going to arrive. Arriving is not the point. Mm. We are currently dipped into this reality experience as humans so that we can experience. That is the whole point. The point is the journey and the point is the experience. And we're just here to gather more data and experience it all. So I'm never going to arrive. I'm never going to be perfect. That's not the point. That's not what I'm going for. When I say I'm every day, I want to become more Bridget than I was the day before. Every day I want to take more steps towards that higher embodiment of myself, knowing that the only way that we're ever going to get there is together in that reunification. We're all going to come back together and go, here's all the stuff I gathered, and I need you and you and you and you, and we all need each other to come back together as one. That's the point. But alone, I'm never going to get there. And that's great. I just want to be me and have the most full experience of being me that I can be, but also see that, like, as one of my podcast guests said, I am the other you. We are all the other you. We're all doing this thing together. We're all on the same team, and we're all giving each other these experiences. So, so then we can go like compare notes off the playground.
Amazing. This is I knew this would be a juicy conversation. Like,
count on me.
I'm like, oh, I'm going to go deep today. Brilliant. And I love it because it's like the way that my mind works, and, there are so many things, but the main thing is, like, I'm with you. I'm like, I don't want it to be done. Like, arriving looks boring, and like, there's so many examples of people who set themselves a goal, got there, and were like, is this it? So you never ever want to get there. You just want to kind of move to a different vantage point and just see, oh, there's still a ways to go, so we need to keep going. So I loved what you shared with us today. Do you have any other last words and parting words, and then also share where everybody can find you as well, Bridget, please?
Oh my gosh. No, I was just thrilled that we were going to get to have another conversation, because I live for these deep conversations. Like, this lights me up, as you can tell. So I have savored every moment of this. And the best ways to get in touch with me, I hang out on Instagram a lot. I love hanging out over there, creating reels, just putting these kind of things out into the world. I share a lot very personally, just because that's who I am. So if that's your thing and you want to kind of join me and follow me, that would be beautiful. It's just at Bridget Querns on Instagram. And then I have 2 YouTube channels. So I've got Querns Coaching is on YouTube, and I'll send you all these so you can link to them. I also have a podcast that I have with my co-host, Beth Orr. We're 2 really similar souls on a really similar journey with a mission that we're sharing, and it's amazing. And our podcast is Click Moments and Passionate Pursuits, The Unfolding, on YouTube. I also have my personal podcast, Passionate Pursuits, which you've been on, and that was an incredible conversation. So would love to have people over there. And my website is just quernscoaching.com. So I think we've covered most of it, but find me. And also, because I do love to have these conversations, I'm the person who loves it when someone reaches out, sends me a message, sends me an email, DMs me on Instagram, and is like, let's connect. I will sit on Zoom and have 30-minute coffee chats with people all day and be the happiest person alive. So, like, really, when I say let's connect, I mean it. Let's connect and let's chat, and bring me your questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much for today. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Of course, I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Bridget, for your beautiful sharings, and thank you for listening. Once again, feel free to listen into her inspirations. Each week I'm taking another topic that delves into something that we all encounter as we're taking this journey to find out more about who we are. The links to the episodes are in the show notes, and also links to the mailing list, so that you can receive the accompanying email on the Monday after the Friday release of her inspirations. And if you're ready to take the next step in your transformation, and with support, accountability, and radical honesty, contact me to find out more about my personalized one-to-one spiritual life coaching program. If you want to know where my website is, that's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. You can find me on Facebook, Carol May Whittick, and on Instagram, Kazmick, Kazmick. So until the next episode, have a great week. Take care. Bye.